Discover the incredible secrets of how people thrived in igloos during harsh medieval winters. The bold headline echoed in Jessie's mind, a painful reminder of the chasm between where she was and where she longed to be. As a single mother in a small Alaskan town, Jessie felt like she was trapped in a freeze that had little to do with the literal cold outside. Days blurred into grueling nights spent laboring at the local diner, prices rising faster than the meager tips she earned. Ava deserved better. The weight of her dreams sat heavily on her heart. When she stepped through her front door, a familiar coolness greeted her like an unwanted friend, and the shadows of past winters loomed within the dimly lit living room. Each creak of the wood summoned her grandmother's resilient spirit, a fierce woman who had braved elements Jessie only read about. As she settled down to retrieve an old box from the depths of her storeroom, a mix of anticipation and dread filled her chest. This wasn't just nostalgia. It was a leap into the life of someone who had survived against the odds. Inside, she found her grandmother's diary, its pages yellowed yet alive with memories. The stories of igloo construction and foraging whipped through Jessie's mind like a snowstorm, each word igniting a flicker of justice and unity from another era. Should she cling to these traditions, or should she chase fleeting modern ideals that felt hollow? She hesitated as the silence of the room grew louder, pressing in on her. The struggle began to twist inside her like a knot. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined to honor her grandmother's legacy, she drafted plans for workshops that would teach others the ancient ways. It was her way of recapturing a community that felt lost, to build igloos not just of snow but of connection. But voices of dissent rippled through the town. The wealthy residents viewed her initiative as a nuisance, an outdated relic. Show them, her mind pleaded, but just the thought filled her with debilitating unease. How could she convince a town cultured in privilege that ancient knowledge still had relevance? Emotion swirled within her like the snow outside, a tempest of doubt and resolve. What if they mocked her efforts? What if they questioned her place in this lineage of strength? Her body tensed with the uncertainty as she prepared for the first workshop, the idea pushing her to the edge of an abyss. Would she be able to bridge the gap between past and present, or would she crumble under skepticism? As she stood in front of a packed room, half filled with skeptics and half with true believers, a pang of fear squeezed her chest. Every eye dissected her, waiting for her to prove herself. Just as her voice steadied, a skeptical remark erupted from the back. A question sliced through her intentions, rattling her confidence, and reminding her of the fiery legacy she'd promised to uphold. This battle wasn't only about igloos or survival skills. It was about her significance in this fractured tapestry. The first flurry of snowflakes began to dance outside as tension enveloped the room. In that moment, sitting on the cusp of revelation or ruin, Jessie realized that her journey had only just begun. Jessie's heart raced as she glanced around the room. The mixture of intrigue and doubt in the faces of her audience was a reflection of her own insecurity. She could feel the weight of her grandmother's legacy looming over her, a challenge that threatened to transform into a burden. As the skeptical voice lingered in the air, Jessie's mind whirled with questions. Did she truly have what it takes to engage these people? Would she be able to show them that resilience, like the igloos built by her ancestors, was not just about survival but thriving against adversity? Taking a cleansing breath, she grounded herself in the present, remembering the stories she had read in her grandmother's diary. Those pages had woven a narrative of strength and innovation, a testament to overcoming harsh realities. With renewed determination, she pushed through the noise of uncertainty and began sharing her grandmother's experiences with the audience, painting vivid images of battles fought against the chill, the ingenuity of building homes out of snow, and the bonds created while gathering resources in the harsh landscape. Yet, the hesitation in her chest loomed larger with every unease-filled glance she stole from the crowd. As she reached a poignant story about a winter's night when her grandmother had saved her family from freezing with nothing but ingenuity and courage, an unexpected hand shot up in the crowd. It belonged to a middle-aged woman with well-coiffed hair and an expression of disdain. "What does this have to do with us now?" the woman challenged. "This is all very nice, but we live in the modern world. Who has the time for old tales and skills that don't matter anymore?" Jessie felt her face flush with embarrassment, the heat of the moment igniting a fierce response within her. No, she thought fiercely. This wasn't just a story from the past, it was a lifeline. Something shifted in her, she could feel her grandmother's spirit pushing her forward. "Actually, we face very different kinds of cold today," she replied, her voice steadying as she leaned into the challenge. "We may not be building igloos literally, but we are still forming shelters in our lives, finding ways to protect our loved ones against the unpredictable storms of the modern world: financial instability, emotional detachment, and disconnection from our roots. The skills we're losing are the very strategies that can enrich our lives." She could see the flicker of surprise in the woman's eyes as she continued, her passion igniting an undeniable energy. Through the burden of her fears, she began to see sparks of curiosity among the audience as they leaned in closer, some even nodding in recognition. Jessie's voice grew bolder, woven with personal anecdotes and compelling arguments about the relevance of ancient survival skills today. She spoke of resilience and adaptability as fundamental traits humanity had relied on for centuries, even if wrapped in the form of snow homes now lost to time. As her talk unfolded, she noticed a subtle shift in the room. Skepticism began to thaw, replaced by a sense of intrigue. Ideas sparked in their eyes, questions began to surface, and slowly, Jessie felt a bond form, the audience opening up to what she shared just as she had hoped. Buoyed by this breakthrough, Jessie reflected on the journey ahead. She envisioned not just workshops, but a revival, a community gathering to explore their shared heritage, find relevance in forgotten ways, and nurture connections that endured. However, doubts trickled back into her mind. Was this clarity a fleeting moment, or would she unravel under the weight of the foundational work needed to maintain momentum? Would the warmth of this newfound understanding survive the chill of the residents who still sneered at the past? She stepped off the makeshift stage, a sense of accomplishment coursing through her veins. Yet lurking in the back of her mind was a new tension, the realization that facing these challenges was not merely about knowledge or skills. It demanded vulnerability and resilience, qualities that required nurturing her own spirit and daring to be seen. The question now was not just how to ignite a flame in her community, but also how to keep the fire alive within her own heart as she forged ahead into the unknown. As she made eye contact with an old friend from childhood, a spark arced between them, awakening dormant memories of joy and connection. The moment hung in the air, whispering of possibilities yet undiscovered, leaving her with a pulse of urgency. The fire of her grandmother's legacy surged within her. What would happen as she delved deeper into her past and cultivated this newfound vision? With resolve brewing anew, Jessie stepped forward, embracing the journey and all its uncertainties. Then, just as she turned back toward the audience, she noticed another hand raised. A curious, eager voice challenged her. "But how do we even start?" The question echoed with promise, propelling her toward the next step, igniting another wave of determination in her heart. Jessie stood poised before a new horizon where the past and future converged, ready to answer. Jessie felt a rush of adrenaline at the girl's question, which echoed louder than all the skeptical murmurs that had filled the room earlier. Her mind raced with possibilities. How could she break down the complex ideas of resilience and tradition into a succinct plan for her audience, a blueprint for a journey she was still navigating herself? "Great question," she said, her eyes sparkling with newfound energy. "The first step starts with awareness. Each of us needs to identify what our cold is today. Just as my grandmother faced the frigid winters of her youth, we each face our own challenges, whether they be emotional isolation, financial uncertainty, or simply the rush of modern life that pulls us away from our roots." As she spoke, she felt a subtle shift within her. She was no longer merely sharing stories, but framing a blueprint for transformation. Her heart raced with hope. Was she capable of leading them down this path? Could she inspire each individual to confront their cold and build their own igloos, metaphorically speaking? Next, we must take stock of what resources we already have, she continued, pacing lightly towards the edge of the stage, her voice growing stronger. My grandmother utilized her surrounding snow and ice, so what do you have? What skills, connections, or traditions can you lean into? The power lies in understanding and utilizing your unique assets. A hand shot up from the back, owned by a bearded man in a flannel shirt. But what if we don't know what those resources are? He interjected, a hint of frustration lacing his tone. I feel like I'm just lost. Jessie sensed the raw vulnerability in his words, mirroring her own doubts. That is a common feeling, she said gently, her tone softening. The discovery process can be daunting. I recommend starting small. Think of your passions or subjects that ignite your curiosity. What makes you feel alive? This process requires discovery and experimentation, a willingness to be vulnerable. She could see some nodding, others lost in thought. This was not the hollow response many were expecting. It was a call to personal introspection, a seed planted in the fertile soil of shared experience. A flicker of excitement erupted within her. This was no longer just her grandmother's legacy, it was theirs now, a collective undertaking woven into the present fabric of their lives. And don't forget, building our igloos takes time and patience, she added, anchoring her message with gravity. Just like my grandmother had to learn and adapt during those harsh winters, we must also be flexible and resilient as we confront our challenges. Life will throw storms our way, and that's part of our journey. Standing on the edge of her vision, a whirlpool of thoughts tugged at Jessie. While she projected confidence, self-doubt began to creep back in. What if, in this selfless ambition to help others, she lost sight of her own development? The weight of her grandmother's legacy threatened to push her back into a realm of mere memory, rather than progress. Just as she prepared to share her next thoughts, the man from the back raised his hand once more. How can we support each other while doing this? He questioned, an earnest tone coursing through his words. The question, sincere and penetrating, resonated deeply. Support. The word hung heavy in the air, leading her to contemplate a troubling discovery. Was she prepared to dive deeper and risk feeling exposed? Being vulnerable, supporting one another required openness and trust, aspects she had lacked through much of her life. Jessie's heart pounded. Behind the question lay potential for community, connection, and exploration. She realized that perhaps she was not meant to walk this path alone. Collective learning might uncover lessons yet hidden both for her and her audience. What could they create together? With renewed vigor, Jessie took a deep breath, ready to address the question of support. As she opened her mouth, a whirlwind of thoughts buzzed inside her. She was at the precipice of forging not only a community but radically redefining her own journey. But before she could respond, she felt a faint tug at her thoughts, a growing fear of what lay ahead. Before I answer, can we push this further? She challenged, her voice steady. What holds us back from reaching out to one another? What are the barriers we must break together? The audience leaned in closer, curiosity transforming to a palpable energy. The moment felt electric, and Jessie understood she was on the verge of a discovery that could redefine everything. Would she have the courage to lead both herself and them into uncharted territory? The question swirled around the room, echoing in her mind, as she stood poised on the verge of insight, ready to ignite a much deeper conversation. As the electric energy of the audience reverberated around her, Jessie felt an intense blend of exhilaration and trepidation wash over her. She was standing on the brink of something monumental, not just for those who listened, but for herself. The challenge of grasping the barriers that held them all back felt daunting, yet there was a part of her whispering that this was the pivotal moment she had been preparing for her entire life. What holds us back? She repeated, allowing the question to linger in the silence. Personal reflections flickered like candlelight behind her eyes. For years she had allowed her insecurities to shape her interactions, to dictate her willingness to take risks. She had always sought validation outside herself, and now she realized how deeply that habit limited her. Anticipating a response, Jessie scanned the crowd and noticed a mixture of expressions. Some masked their vulnerabilities with shields of skepticism while others wore the faint glow of hope intermingled with fear. She had to share her own hesitations to even the playing field. For me, it has often been a fear of judgment. The thought of vulnerability exposes us and makes us susceptible. But what if that very exposure, that raw honesty, can unite us? The bearded man from before leaned forward intently. What if we find ourselves more isolated by our attempts to reach out? I've tried connecting before, and it only left me more lost, he admitted, his voice steady but revealing deeper currents of frustration and defeat. That's a valid concern, Jessie acknowledged quickly, unwavering in her conviction. But we must recognize that isolation breeds stagnation, and through shared vulnerability, we can cultivate genuine connection. Yes, it can be uncomfortable, but it brings with it growth and understanding. She felt her heart rate increase, her mind racing as she continued. We have to redefine what it means to fail or feel alone. The old traditions can sometimes stifle us, teaching us to hide our struggles instead of embracing them. As words flowed from her, Jessie felt a weight lifting. The shadow of her grandmother's legacy now felt less like a burden and more like a guiding light. This journey was now one of authenticity and encouragement, mirrored in the spirits of others willing to uncover their own truths. Suddenly, a young woman with vibrant curly hair boldly raised her hand. Jessie, how do we actually start this process of reaching out? It sounds nice in theory, but what are tangible ways we can break down those barriers? Jessie felt a jolt of enthusiasm. Here it was the opportunity to provide the actionable steps that would give life to her vision. We can begin by creating a safe space to share our stories. Simple gatherings, discussions where everyone can express their own cold, and what it looks like for them. It requires trust, but starting small can help foster that environment. Trust can be fragile, though, the woman responded, her brow furrowed. What if someone breaches that trust? Jessie paused, reflecting. Then we learn about boundaries, communication, and perseverance. Trust is built over time, just like those igloos. Each block of ice represents a decision to engage honestly. Some blocks may crack, but together, we won't let a single freeze. The uncertainty of her path loomed in her thoughts. But Jessie realized she wasn't alone anymore, not in this moment, nor in her fears. With each question posed, she was shaping her own narrative, redefining personal connections that had once felt impossible. She was in the midst of something far larger, a call to vulnerability that echoed back to her own inner resolve. Let us challenge ourselves together, Jessie proposed earnestly. What if each of us reached out to someone we've not connected with before? Just a simple message, a question, an invitation? What could happen? The idea lit a spark in the room, conversations igniting, laughter bubbling up, and a sense of camaraderie began to unfurl. Jessie sensed a shift. Something was blooming, not just hope, but a sense of purpose. As the energy swirled, Jessie contemplated her next steps. She had initiated a movement of connection, but would it last beyond this moment? Could she maintain her own growth amidst the chaos of newfound community? All right, she declared, squaring her shoulders, let us set tangible goals for the following week and reconvene with our stories. Accountability breeds strength. The anticipation hung thick in the air, but one question clawed at her thoughts. Would her intentions survive the reality of unguarded openness? The weight of potential weighed heavily on her. Could genuine trust truly dethrone her long-standing fears? The unfamiliar territory of collective growth and individual vulnerability lay ahead, and as excitement buzzed around her, the prospect of taking that leap terrified her. Jessie felt the swell of determination but also unease. Was she prepared for the commitment that awaited? The week unfolded with a rapid intensity that Jessie hadn't anticipated. Each day, she watched the community she had inspired grapple with boldness and uncertainty. Her heart raced in tandem with the stories they shared. Laughter and tears alike surfaced, providing an unforeseen clarity. Yet deep down, Jessie battled her own skepticism. Could she truly lead them toward a place of authentic connection, or was this merely a fleeting episode of enthusiasm? In the quiet of her personal reflection, Jessie found herself unearthing questions that shook her foundation. Why did she crave the approval of this new circle? Was it to compensate for the years spent in silence, or was it simply a pursuit of validation? The irony wasn't lost on her. She was using the very platform meant to liberate others to examine her own tangled motivations. Over coffee one afternoon, with notes from their previous meetings spread out before her, Jessie came across a line from a participant that struck her. Falling feels safe when we have a soft place to land. That phrase lingered in her mind, resonating within the framework she was building. Could the soft, supportive community genuinely hold one another through their vulnerabilities? Determined to focus on her internal growth, she decided to set aside her worries about others' judgments for a moment, and confront her own. Jessie gathered her courage and reached out to individuals she felt an urge to connect with: the bearded man, who had once voiced his trepidation, and the vibrant curly-haired woman, who had shown both interest and insight. Her fingers hovered over her phone's screen, each tap heavy with intention. Was she ready to embrace the discomfort that came with deeper engagement? When she finally composed a message, she hesitated. What if they misconstrued her outreach? What if her vulnerability was met with indifference? But through that fear, a whisper of excitement lingered. There lay the potential for understanding, the opportunity to challenge herself further. In what felt like an eternity, replies began to flow in. The bearded man expressed relief and appreciation for the outreach, sharing that he too had been grappling with expressing his own emotions. The vibrant curly-haired woman responded enthusiastically, acknowledging how fragile trust can feel but embracing her desire to cultivate deeper connections. Jessie began to recognize that their willingness to engage was a reflection of the very bravery she sought to inspire in herself. As their conversations deepened, Jessie initiated an idea that electrified her: a small gathering at her home, inviting the trio of people who had taken to heart their challenge to create a safe space. Her mind swirled with logistical details and dwindling doubts. Hosting meant an expansion of her comfort zone, but it also acted as a mirror reflecting her commitment to the journey ahead. On the day of the gathering, she transformed her living room with soft lighting, pillows on the floor, and the scent of herbal tea wafting gently in the air. As she dashed around checking details, a creeping anxiety surfaced, quaking her resolve. What if the discussions revealed more than she was prepared for? What if their vulnerabilities exposed her own? The doorbell signaled the arrival of her first guest, and as Jessie greeted the bearded man, a sense of inevitable change coursed through her. She buried her insecurities behind a welcoming smile, just as she had envisioned. Behind that facade, her mind wrestled with the question of authenticity. How could she foster transparency within herself when uncertainty loomed? The small group assembled, and as conversation sparked, Jessie felt something unfamiliar: a shift within herself. Each shared story peeled back layers, revealing deeper truths intertwined with laughter and acceptance. In moments of silence, she listened intently, her thoughts intertwining with a new reality of connection. This was not solely about building frameworks for others. It was a raw exploration of her own identity. The hour stretched, and Jessie realized she was both a leader and a participant in this delicate dance of vulnerability and strength. Could she accept that this blend was essential for her growth? As deeper conversations flowed, one question loomed: what would happen when the rawness of their interactions collided with the reality of who they were beneath their crafted facades? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jessie's excitement transformed into a resolve she hadn't anticipated. She leaned into the challenge ahead and prepared for a dive into the unknown. The leap might feel acutely personal, but perhaps it was exactly what she needed. What would she uncover when she finally faced the truths threatening to emerge? How would the act of revealing herself shift the dynamics among them? The moment beckoned, with tension heavy in the air, but Jessie took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever lay beneath. With the room buzzing with energy, Jessie took a moment to absorb the warmth of connection surrounding her. The conversations ebbed and flowed, punctuated by laughter and the occasional tear. Yet beneath that surface joy, Jessie could feel the pulse of her own apprehensions. Would they be able to sustain such openness, or would a revelation shatter this newly budding intimacy? As each person spoke, Jessie observed their expressions closely, a tangle of emotions flickering in their eyes. The bearded man shared a story about his childhood, and Jessie found herself nodding along, feeling an inexplicable kinship with his experiences. She wanted to reciprocate, to share her own story, but a tightness lodged in her chest. Was her truth as profound or relevant as theirs? The weight of silence pressed heavily upon her as internal battles raged. Revealing herself felt like unearthing a treasure, yet vulnerable enough to be exposed. Eventually, as the conversation shifted to who everyone was beyond their stories, Jessie decided it was time. "I think I have a story too," she started, her voice trembling slightly. Their attentive gazes ignited a flicker of courage within her, pushing back against her insecurities. "For years I felt lost, driven by the need for approval and often hiding behind smiles. I feared that no one would truly understand me." The confession fell from her lips, raw and unfiltered, hinting at the layers she had yet to explore. The room fell into silence, but it felt different, collected, supportive. The bearded man broke the moment with a sincere nod. "You just opened the door for all of us," he admitted, voice resonating with genuine appreciation. "It's scary to be that honest." Jessie's heart raced. His words were electric, and they underscored her inner resolve. Perhaps this was what she had been seeking all along, not merely to create a space for others but to be brave enough to fill it with her own authentic self. Each shared vulnerability fostered an environment for acceptance, reinforcing her vision for the group as a platform for connection. As the evening wore on, it was not just truths that were laid bare but insights into their personalities that Jessie found striking. The vibrant curly-haired woman, whose laughter filled the air, disclosed her personal struggles with anxiety, and how it informed her interactions. It was then Jessie recognized a hidden strength within herself. She was not only an echo of their stories but a catalyst for their discoveries. The roles had shifted. She became an active participant in a shared journey of understanding. By the time the gathering started to ebb, Jessie gazed at the trio before her, feeling something transformative stealthily weaving its way through them. The soft ambience had somehow shifted, reflecting not just the physical space but the emotional realm they had created together. Each person's story was a viewpoint leading deeper into the intricacies of who they were, a mosaic of experiences that could connect them in profound ways. Yet, amid all this new clarity, a question clung stubbornly in her mind. As invigorating as this evening was it sustainable? Could they continue to share such rawness without fear of repercussions? The very act of unveiling their vulnerabilities left hers exposed as well. But what if they faltered? What if she failed to maintain this newfound openness they had begun to cultivate? Jessie pushed through that discomfort, realizing that embracing uncertainty might actually serve as a bridge to deeper, authentic relationships. In this reflection, another question emerged: how could she nurture this connection without losing the integrity of each individual's journey? Standing amidst them, she recognized the anxiety inversely tied to possibility. They were on the cusp of growth that transcended mere camaraderie. Yet, with every revelation came the potential for severity, a risk that had to be managed delicately. The beckoning challenge lingered in the air, and with it, the notion that she would have to navigate these complexities, perhaps even confront personal conflicts she had yet to face, a realization that surged with both trepidation and excitement. As the gathering ended and goodbyes were exchanged, Jessie caught sight of the curly-haired woman, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "We should do this more often," she suggested, and the bearded man nodded earnestly. Jessie returned their sentiments with a smile, but internally she mused, was she ready to embrace the necessary pain of confrontation that might arise from fostering deeper connections? What truths awaited her when they ventured deeper into their collective landscape of vulnerability and authenticity? The lingering question was clear: would she find the courage to face her own depths, embracing both the uncomfortable truths about herself and the unraveling complexities of those she invited closer? As the days blurred after that transformative evening, Jessie felt a subtle shift coursing through her. The warmth of the connections forged lingered, igniting sparks of determination within her. With each passing moment, she sensed an evolution taking root, prompting her to confront the complexities she had previously sidestepped. The following week, Jessie found herself in her usual routine, but now, the mundane seemed laced with newfound significance. Each encounter, whether with colleagues in the office or during her solitary runs through the park, resonated with a deeper awareness. She observed the little things, the weary but fierce determination in her coworker's eyes during a hectic meeting, the way the elderly lady at the bus stop tenderly smiled at an impatient child. With this lens, Jessie began the delicate work of recognizing the narratives that played out around her. In her personal life, her apprehensions tightened their grip. Could she sustain the courage she summoned that night? Would she be able to achieve the levels of honesty that would lead to the deeper connections she now craved? Jessie took a moment to reflect on the messy puzzle of her own emotions. She was a curator of other people's stories, but what about her own? What happened when she stripped back the bravado, leaving only the stark reality of her journey? Drawing upon her experiences from the gathering, Jessie decided to take a small yet significant step. She asked a close friend, Lena, to meet up for coffee. The mundane nature of the request belied the urgency she felt inside, a yearning to push the boundaries of their friendship just a little further. As she waited in the cafe, her fingers danced nervously around the edges of her cup. Every tick of the clock felt magnified, a reminder of her want to nurture vulnerability. When Lena arrived, bursting with her usual exuberance, Jessie felt a rush of relief but soon transformed into apprehension. The moment weighed on her. How could she broach the subject of truth and openness without risking the foundations of their friendship? "Jess, you seem different," Lena noted, her brow creasing with concern. "What's going on?" Jessie took a steadying breath, heart racing at the impending leap into the unknown. "I'm trying to be more honest about who I am, about what I feel," she began hesitantly. As she continued to speak, Jessie poured out her desire for deeper relationships, her struggles with insecurity, and the fear that often silenced her. Each admission felt like peeling away layers, exposing raw skin beneath, but Lena listened intently, her eyes shimmering with understanding. The conversation transcended mere words. Jessie could see her friend's own revelations forming a disclosure about a recent breakup and Lena's struggle with self-worth. They began to weave a tapestry of shared vulnerability that felt electrifying. With each moment spent discussing their insecurities, they teetered dangerously close to the edges of uncharted territories but also found solid ground in honesty. Yet, as Jessie embraced this newfound dynamic, hesitation flickered in the corners of her mind. Was she truly ready to dive so deeply with her friend, risking the very connection they held dear? How would they navigate the potential awkwardness that might arise from laying bare their psyches? Jessie lingered on these questions, anxiety swirling within her like a tempest. As the afternoon light dimmed and the cafe's ambience softened, Jessie felt a profound shift in her inner landscape. She realized that her journey was not merely about connection, it was about confronting her own fears of inadequacy and nurturing both the threads of individual and mutual growth. Would this newfound bravery directly impact her professional ambitions, or would she falter in personal relationships? She left the cafe with her heart full of hope yet heavy with uncertainty. The conversation had sparked something in her, but now she had to learn how to wield that fire without getting burned. In her mind, a burgeoning sense of purpose clashed with trepidation. How would she navigate this intricate web of honesty in her life moving forward? As she walked home, Jessie's thoughts churned. She felt the door to deeper authenticity swinging open, perhaps inviting more complications than she had initially anticipated. What lay beyond would be a test of her resolve, her friendships, and ultimately, a confrontation with her own deeply buried vulnerabilities. Tomorrow, she would seek out new opportunities to embrace this risk. Her journey had only just begun. Standing at the threshold of her apartment, Jessie felt the weight of her decision to embrace transparency heavy on her shoulders. The coffee chat with Lena had unraveled something profound within her, yet it also opened a floodgate of uncertainties. Each realization sat uncomfortably, prompting her to question if she was prepared to handle the emotional bareness that accompanied such authenticity. The next morning, Jessie awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. The city beyond her window pulsated with life, yet today, its rhythm seemed different. She yearned for engagement, to act on the sparks ignited by her prior conversation. With that fire in her belly, Jessie decided to revisit her workplace more consciously, aware that every interaction now had potential for honesty and connection. Still, hesitance whispered in her mind. As she prepared for the day, she pondered how her colleagues would receive her newfound resolve. Would they recoil at the sight of vulnerability? Or would they respond with the same openness she craved? Jessie molded her reflections into a plan. During a team meeting later that afternoon, she would share not just professional updates, but a personal anecdote, a step toward vulnerability in her workplace. As Jessie entered the office, the bustling atmosphere, even with its usual pressure, instilled both excitement and trepidation. Desks cluttered with papers and the hum of distant conversations surrounded her, constants of comfort and discomfort. She took a deep breath, choosing to focus on the strength her recent journey had forged within her. The meeting began, and as her colleagues exchanged reports, Jessie found herself swimming in a sea of anxiety. When her turn arrived, she felt her heart pounding. With a mix of resolve and uncertainty, she spoke about a recent setback in her project, not merely detailing statistics, but weaving in how it had unsettled her. It was terrifyingly liberating to lay bare her professional vulnerability. Recently, a project didn't go as planned. Initially, I felt crushed, but I realized it wasn't about the failure itself but what I learned in the process, she shared, locking eyes with her teammates. I'm trying to be more open about my struggles, and I hope to foster a space where we can all support each other more authentically. Silence filled the room. Then, slowly, nods of agreement began to ripple through her colleagues. Jessie could see them shift in their seats, contemplating her words. Moments passed, and finally, a fellow team member, Mark, spoke up. I appreciate your honesty, Jess. I've been feeling overwhelmed myself, and it's good to know I'm not alone. Encouraged by his response, Jessie felt a wave of relief. The ice had cracked, and more voices began to emerge, each sharing their challenges and vulnerabilities. This exchange morphed the atmosphere from merely tactical to genuinely connected. Each shared experience chipped away at the barriers, leaving space for empathy to blossom. Yet, as the conversation deepened, Jessie also sensed the shadows of her doubts return. While she had taken significant steps outwardly, was her inner dialogue evolving at the same pace? Would she have the strength to maintain this newfound honesty as she confronted her own fears and insecurities? After the meeting, Jessie lingered by her desk, reflecting on the stirrings she had initiated. The high of vulnerability was palpable, yet she sensed undercurrents of doubts rising, questioning her readiness for this path. As she packed her things to leave for the day, her heart raced with the weight of possibilities and challenges that lay ahead. Walking home, her mind spun with excitement of the collective honesty that was emerging, yet also impending challenges. The day had marked a turning point, but Jessie understood that sustaining this authenticity would require mindful courage. Where would she find the strength to navigate deeper connections in both her personal and professional lives? As she approached her front door, a thought settled in her mind: this journey was far from over. If anything, it had only begun. Tomorrow would call for more than just honesty. She would have to confront the demons within herself, and that promised to be the true test of her resolve. The following morning, the sun filtered into Jessie's apartment, illuminating the remnants of yesterday's excitement and unease. As she sipped her coffee, her thoughts gravitated towards the potential transformations her vulnerability could usher in, not just for her but for her colleagues. Yet, an internal conflict simmered beneath the surface. Would her vulnerability falter against her ever-looming need for perfection? Arriving at the office, Jessie was surprised to find a tangible shift in the air. Colleagues greeted her with warm smiles, inviting her into conversations laced with an openness she had only hoped for. A sense of camaraderie blossomed, but with it came a haunting question: would she be able to hold space for their vulnerabilities while grappling with her own insecurities? Today's agenda included one-on-one check-ins, a format Jessie had traditionally approached with well-prepared agendas and professional distance. This time, however, she aimed to navigate them differently. Rather than merely focusing on performance metrics, she would invite her teammates to share their thoughts about the workplace climate, the good and the bad. But could she set aside her anxiety about potential conflict? During her first meeting with Nancy, who was known for her guarded nature, Jessie felt a surge of anxious anticipation. As they discussed project timelines, Jessie hesitated before broaching the subject of vulnerability. I want to make sure you feel comfortable sharing how you've been doing. I know the pressure can feel overwhelming, she said, her heart racing. Nancy's expression softened. Honestly, I've been feeling burned out. I appreciate you asking, she replied, illuminating a critical truth. Vulnerability had the power to dismantle the walls they had built around themselves. Jessie realized she could facilitate deeper connections, but doing so demanded relentless honesty from both parties. As the day unfolded, Jessie experienced a dizzying blend of elation and trepidation. Her discussions revealed fostering authenticity was a delicate dance not everyone was ready to engage, and some recoiled from vulnerability entirely. In a later meeting with Tom, who had previously seemed indifferent, Jessie received a stark reminder of the harsh realities of workplace dynamics. I don't think we should discuss our feelings at work. It's a distraction, he remarked bluntly when she suggested a round of sharing experiences. The sudden chill in the air felt daunting. Jessie's heart sank. He had denied the very essence of what she sought to cultivate within their workplace. Was this what the resistance looked like? But instead of retreating, Jessie leaned into the discomfort. You're not wrong, it can feel challenging. But isn't it worth exploring how our feelings impact our work? She countered, surprise flooding her with newfound determination. In that moment, she understood that she needed to uphold her values, even in the face of resistance. Returning to her desk that afternoon, Jessie reflected. It was clear now that vulnerability could be polarizing. It opened spaces for connection but threatened to expose their fears. The weight of Tom's dismissal disheartened her, yet it also ignited a resolve within. If she could embrace her own discomfort, maybe others would gradually follow. As she packed up to leave, Jessie noticed her reflection in the office window. The resolute stare mirrored her shifting identity. She wasn't just someone advocating for transparency, she was living it. Jessie realized sustaining this authenticity required relentless self-advocacy. She pondered her next step. How could she rally others around the notion that discomfort could be embraced instead of avoided? As she approached home, burdens mingled with hopes. Could she cultivate a space where even dissenting voices might see the value in vulnerability? Determined, Jessie opened her front door, ready to explore further connections and personal growth. This commitment felt like a leap into the unknown, but she breathed in possibilities. On the horizon loomed an unsettling realization. Mere desire wasn't enough. She would need to confront the barriers of vulnerability head-on, and the challenge was just beginning. Would she find allies in unexpected places, or would resistance mount in unyielding waves? Jessie stood at the threshold of her next workshop, her heart racing as the sound of stirring conversations filled the air. The energy in the room was invigorating, an unmistakable blend of excitement and trepidation. Today wasn't just another session for sharing survival skills. It was a pivotal moment where Jessie could finally showcase her growth. She had navigated the complexities of vulnerability, woven authenticity into her narrative, and now stood ready to initiate deeper connections within her community. As participants filtered in, Jessie's thoughts danced between anxiety and certainty. She was, at long last, redefining her role from a hesitant storyteller to a confident facilitator of transformation. Each person in attendance represented not merely a connection to the past but a testament to the resilience built through vulnerability. This workshop was no longer solely about igloos of snow. It was about building foundations of trust, relationships, and enduring support systems that could weather storms far beyond the physical realm. She welcomed everyone warmly. Thank you all for being here today. This journey is as much yours as it is mine, and together, we can create new definitions of resilience. A ripple of anticipation flowed through the crowd. Jessie realized she had not only invited them to share in a dialogue about history but had ignited a spark of collective introspection and genuine connection that promised new beginnings. As she shared her experiences, her fear of judgment, her struggles with vulnerability, and undeniable sense of pride swelled within her. In articulating her vulnerabilities, Jessie had achieved a profound understanding. She wasn't alone in her fears. She watched as heads nodded, eyes widened, and individuals leaned into her words. Their shared experiences served as testimonies to the complexity of moving forward, of how lives interweaved in strength and uncertainty. The afternoon unfolded organically, conversations blossoming into discussions rich with raw honesty. Participants shared their colds, the personal challenges they faced in their lives, and invited others to join in their vulnerability. Moments transformed into connections, laughter melted away fears, and once guarded individuals became allies in the pursuit of understanding. Jessie reveled in this symbiotic growth, realizing that every shared story strengthened the fabric of their community. Yet, amidst the joyous revelations, a voice from the back brought a shiver of dissent. A familiar critique emerged, reminiscent of the challenges she had faced earlier. Why should we invest time in stories of the past when our modern lives are so different? The accusation felt like a jolt to her core, a reminder of the skepticism that had shadowed her initial efforts. She paused, summoning the resolve that had flourished from her newfound confidence. Because history shapes our present, she responded, her voice resolute. Understanding where we come from opens doors to how we can navigate where we are going. When we embrace our shared humanity, we craft a future rooted in empathy and connection. There was a silence as her words hung in the air, not as accusations but as invitations. As Jessie moved to the next segment, she encouraged attendees to create personal action plans, simple yet powerful steps to foster their own connections while appreciating their unique individual strengths. What could they do to build their metaphorical igloos in their lives? Each participant was charged with discovering their resources and sharing their intentions moving forward. By the end of the workshop, the room radiated a sense of achievement. They had built something together, a foundation of trust that allowed for collective vulnerability. Jessie felt a warmth overcoming her as she witnessed a woman in the back embrace a fellow participant, tears of release and recognition flowing freely between them. This was what she had envisioned. This was the power of connection. As participants began to gather their belongings, Jessie stood at the front, overwhelmed by satisfaction. She had realized her vision and surpassed her own expectations. She was now a leader, ready to help guide others through their own transformations. This newfound recognition felt solid and legitimate. She had proven her capability not only to herself but to those around her. With every passing week, Jessie continued to cultivate this newly fortified community, striding forward with confidence. She embraced mentorship opportunities and created safe spaces, ensuring that the warmth of vulnerability flourished. Her growth had culminated in something tangible, a network of support that stretched beyond workshop walls, a true testimony to her dedication to change. Eventually, she garnered invitations to speak at various community forums, reflecting how her journey had evolved from vulnerability to leadership. She was recognized for her competence, a sought-after voice that championed resilience and adaptation in a modernized world. Jessie's transformation from doubt to empowerment was complete. She had ignited a renaissance of self-discovery and connection. As she prepared to leave the very room that stocked the echoes of her doubts, Jessie felt a surge of gratitude wash over her. For the first time in years, she accepted that she was not just following in her grandmother's footsteps but forging her own path defined by authenticity, profound understanding, and a collective endeavor towards strength. Each connection built, each vulnerability exchanged, was an igloo formed in the warmth of newfound resilience. She had not only honored her grandmother's legacy, she had transformed it into a thriving community, rich with connection and ushering others toward their own journeys of growth. This was her triumph, her tangible achievement. And with that, Jessie took a deep breath, embraced what was to come, and walked confidently into her future, ready to embrace every new challenge and opportunity. This is your moment to make a difference. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can transform your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure others find this message. Comment below your reactions and theories about Jessie's journey, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to provide the support our community deserves.